Hey guys, it's Nation back with another video. This is the owner of the Collegiate CCS. If you're just now following CCS, it's a Collegiate Rocket League league. You play against your NCAA Division I opponents through league play in the conference playoffs, but there's automatic qualifiers for our championships later this summer. And there's also at-larges, just like any collegiate sport championship like March Madness, or if you're familiar with that, or collegiate women's volleyball, where there's a selection committee and at-larges available for teams that do not win their conference tournament. Let's go ahead and take a look at how things work here with our bracketology rules right before the selection committee will meet here in about a week or so time, as next weekend all matches will wrap up. But rule number one, teams play each other twice in the regular season or conference playoffs must not meet until at least round 3. Teams that play each other once must not meet until at least round 2, and any team in the same conference is not allowed to play until round 2. And like I mentioned before, there are automatic qualifiers. There's 10 of them and 22 at-larges for our 32-team field. Let's take a look at the 10 automatic qualifiers according to what I believe will happen after next week. Niner Esports will win the American. Kansas will win the Big 12. Florida State will win the ACC. San Diego State will win the Mountain West. Tennessee will win the SEC. FIU should win CUSA. Oregon has already won the Big 10. James Madison won the Sun Belt. Connecticut won the Big East. And Northern Arizona will win the Big Sky. We'll go and take a look at the South region here as our first section in the bracket. Number 1 overall seed will go to the Jayhawks of Kansas after their win against Colorado in the first conference championship for the Big 12 this season. They open up as number 1 in the official bracket. Kansas's first round opponent will come in at Nevada in round 1. Nevada, again, one of the 8 seeds here in our CCS championships, and they come in on the low side of that 8 line, barely in, just looking at themselves being out, but they play San Diego State in the Mountain West title game sometime next week. As long as they keep that series close, the Wolfpack should be comfortably in the field. But Nevada, again, solid season, conference title game appearance for the first time in this program's history in CCS, so good season out of the Wolfpack. Number 4 in the South, the Buds at GSU, after an unfortunate 6-game loss to James Madison, find themselves in the field here. In round 1, they get a 4 seed in the South, Kansas up above. It's going to be a tough bracket here. Their opponents in round 1, Connecticut Huskies, the Big East champions, here for round 1 after a dethroning 4-1 score over Butler in the Big East title game last night. If you missed that out on their stream, Collegiate CS on Twitch, go watch it if you'd like to keep up with the league. Moving forward, the number 2 seed in the South is Colorado, and before we get here, Colorado again, title game appearance like last season. And there's another rule I forgot about that will take into effect for the actual selection show in a week. But the Buffaloes currently on the 2 line in the South region after a loss to Kansas in the Big 12 title game. Their opponents, number 7, LA Tech, in round 1. They'll probably move up a line or 2 after last night's win against Jack State, as long as they can play FIU close, which they've already beaten this season about 2 weeks ago in Week 6 of our final regular season week over FIU. Their only loss all season is LA Tech. Louisiana Tech looking up, moving forward into the field. And to round out the South, number 3, the Cinderella run, Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, number 3 in the South. This is a very stacked bracket. Looking at it, but Nebraska falls on the 3 line. Their opponents probably moving down after last night's loss. The Gamecocks of Jack State here as the 6th seed, and this is a pretty tough region. Nebraska, Jack State could go either way, but Jack State probably goes down the line, maybe swaps at LA Tech. Both those teams have played twice, so now that match can't even happen as they are not allowed to be until round 3. So LA Tech and Jack State will be in separate regions, but this is a game that could go either way. LA Tech as well with Colorado, probably a 6-game win for Colorado, maybe 5 if they're on fire. Again, Thumper out for the rest of the season. We found out earlier this afternoon. UConn and Buds 50-50. UConn looked great. Buds have looked solid. James Madison had their way with the Buds, but UConn on fire currently with Gavin averaging multiple goals a game. That could go either way. And then Kansas should have their way with Nevada. But we'll move forward into the East region. Number 1, Florida State Seminoles come in number 1 here in the East region. Their opponents will be the Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights, barely slide into the field as Rutgers 1-3 against teams in the field. They do have a win, and they had Game 5 with Purdue and Illinois earlier in the regular season. Indiana, their 1 win in Game 5. They are a perfect sweep by Oregon on their way out of the Big Ten tournament. This is the Rutgers team that deserves to be in the field, but barely sliding in. Again, Rutgers, number 8 in the East. Number 4, Niner Esports out of Charlotte. AAC champions here in round 1 earn a 4 seed from me. And again, this is way before anyone in the committee has met deciding the bracket. So this is just my opinion on what I believe will be somewhat close to hopefully the bracket in about a week and a half or so time when we do the official CCS selection show. Central Florida, the 5 seed, come in after a huge upset victory over Texas Tech to launch their way into the field in round 1. They got swept by Kansas in the second round of the conference tournament, but the Knights find themselves into the field, number 5 seed against Charlotte in round 1. Otherwise, Niner Esports are not allowed to use that Charlotte branding. Number 2 in the East, FIU, CUSA champions in round 1. And that's going to be another tough field moving forward for the Panthers, their opponents. A team that could make a deep run in this tournament, Alabama, come in. Unfortunate loss to Texas A&M in the conference tournament semifinal the other night, but Alabama beat Texas by a sweep, and they've looked incredible to close out the postseason, but they find themselves in the field, which is barely. And then the SBC champions, James Madison, a 3 seed in the East. Opponents, another team that can make a run, Pitt. Pittsburgh finds themselves in the field as well, and Pittsburgh has been a team that plays off of demos and they play off of runs in these series 2 and 4 against the field. A loss to Syracuse in 4, loss to Virginia Tech as well earlier in the season, a loss to FSU, and wins over Clemson and Cal. So tough resume for Pitt, but I think they do find themselves in the field pretty comfortably. We'll move forward into the West. Number 1, San Diego State. Team that got to the national championship game just a season ago with an L to Kansas. SDSU number 1 in the West for me, and they should be West number 1 across the board. We'll see what the committee believes as long as they take care of business with Nevada earlier in this conference tournament. Next week we'll find out if they can close it out. But number 8 in the West, Utah slide in. Now this is a team that might not be in the field. It depends on what the committee thinks. I'm only a fifth of the committee, so this is just my opinion, but I do think Utah is in. But Utah, again, rough resume, 0-3 against the field, losses in Game 5 to Texas Tech and Colorado, and a Game 4 L to Cincinnati last week in the conference tournament, where they saw themselves eliminated from the playoffs. Utah took care of business with the teams they had to beat, but they lost the big games on the season, so Utah could see themselves eliminated, but I do have Utah on the 8 line. Moving forward into the 4 seed of Butler, who I thought would win the Big East, but Butler unfortunately lost in Game 5, 4-1, the final. UConn dominated. And Butler, though, still very comfortably into the field. At 4 line, they might fall down to 5 after last night. But Butler currently on number 4. Number 5, the Big Sky champions, Northern Arizona, as number 5 against Butler in round 1. This is a great game if it happens for round 1. This is a 50-50 shot. Either team could win. NAU's been on fire recently. Butler has looked incredible, especially against DePaul last week, and dominated that series. And moving forward here, number 2, talk about this game a lot. If it can happen in round 3, San Diego State wanted them. Number 2, it's the Ducks. The Big Ten champions survived Nebraska's 3-1 comeback effort last night in Game 7 off a 0-second goal. The Ducks, number 2 in the West. Their opponents, number 7, Cinderella run potentially, Sacramento State. Undefeated, currently one of 9 remaining in CCS Season 3. Sac State have looked great. Big win over Northern Arizona in Week 2. Moving forward, this team's still unbeaten. A game with NAU next week for the title in the Big Sky. Number 3 in the West. Indiana sit number 3 here in the West region. Oregon in round 2, potentially if they can survive round number 1, where the Longhorns of Texas have been pretty dominant all season outside of one loss to Texas A&M and now Alabama in round 1 of the conference tournament. But Indiana and Texas, a round 1 match, it could go either way. Texas have looked great. Indiana have looked great at times. Indiana did kind of look a little rough against Oregon in the second round of that conference tournament last week on stream, where Oregon dominated them to get their way to the Big Ten final, where they defeated Nebraska last night to win it. Now moving forward, Tennessee will open things up for the Midwest here. Number 1, the 4th overall seed in the tournament, behind Kansas, SDSU, and Florida State. Sorry, Tennessee's number 3 in this field. Florida State's 4. Tennessee number 1 in the Midwest. Their opponents in round 1, California. California had a good resume enough to get into the field with wins against Pitt and Clemson to close the season. California, unfortunate loss to Pitt in the round 1 of the ACC playoffs, but they looked great throughout the course of the season. They have to be rewarded with a bid, in my opinion. We'll see what the committee believes, but I think California gets in with an 8. Number 4, the Boilermakers up Purdue. A 3-0 lead against Nebraska in the conference tournament semifinal, blown away. Nebraska won 4 in a row to move on and pull off the first ever in-season best-of-7 reverse sweep, where the Cornhuskers prevailed in Game 7 to move on to play Oregon, where they eventually did lose. But Purdue, a 4 seed in the field, maybe a 5. We'll see what the committee believes, but I think Purdue earns a 4. Number 5, this is a region that really is tough. They are on fire. Number 5, Syracuse the Orange against Purdue in round 1. Syracuse, again, one of those teams that they've looked a little rough lately, but they started off strong. They got reversed up by Florida State to close the season. They barely survived Louisville in round 1 of the ACC playoffs, won in Game 5 off a 3-second goal to win, and 15 seconds remaining was they were losing. And they survived Louisville. Now they play Virginia Tech tomorrow to lock in another game with Florida State if they can advance past Virginia Tech and the Hokies. Moving forward, though, number 2 in the Midwest, Texas A&M, undefeated, 1 of 9 remaining, alongside Tennessee as well here in the Midwest. Texas A&M, again, unbeaten, plenty full of great resume wins for this Aggie team. It's looked great all season. We'll see what the playoffs will hold here for Texas A&M. They play Tennessee next week in that SEC tournament final. And Texas Tech, their opponents in round 1, the Red Raiders, unfortunate loss in round 1 of the Central Florida Knights. 0-3, they were swept without Bramble, the starter. The sub had to come in and play, and unfortunately the Red Raiders were swept away by the Knights. And that's how the USCF gets their bid into this tournament, by that Texas Tech victory. I think that's how they get in. But we'll see what the committee believes. And then to close out the field, number 3, the Bearcats of Cincinnati, top 4 in the Big 12 tournament, earn themselves a 3 seed here for the CCS championships. And number 6, their opponent in round 1, to close out the 32-team field is Clemson. Clemson, an unfortunate, again, round 1 loss, but they had a heck of a season. Only 1 loss on the resume. Clemson finished 2-1 against the field with wins against Syracuse and Cal. They were swept by Pitt to close their season. And this is a 32-team field moving forward into our last 4 in and first 4 out. Cal, Rutgers, Utah, and Nevada are all barely in, as California finished 2-3 against the field. Rutgers finished 1-3 against the field. Utah finished 0-3 against the field. Nevada finished, of course, 1-2 against the field. That win against Air Force is the reason Nevada finds their way into the field, gets the committee to put Nevada on the bracket. And the first 4 out currently for me, Virginia Tech. If they can beat Syracuse tomorrow, they're in my books. Illinois are currently out looking in, as that loss against Nebraska in round 1 really hurting them right now. Louisiana couldn't beat any of the big teams in the SBC, so they see themselves out. And UNT Black are also out with only 1 win against a team that potentially could also get in. They have a big game with Charlotte this week, though, for the AAC title. If they can win that, UNT Black, the Mean Green, find their way into the field with a win. But other than that, I think UNT Black is unfortunately out. We will see what happens next week in about a week or so time. But that's the end of the video here. As you see the last 4 in, the first 4 out, as it's been Nation on this video. Until next time, we'll see y'all later.